My mother showed up at my 22nd birthday dinner with a folder already prepared to take over the diner Grandma had just given me. She didn't hug me first. She didn't ask if I was happy. She looked at the brass key in my hand, then at the red recipe box on the table and said, "Good. We can finally manage this properly as a family." When I told her, "No, Mom," Grandma gave it to me. Her smile vanished. Then she leaned close enough for only me to hear, "If you won't sign it over, don't expect to sleep under a roof my mother built." I didn't cry. I didn't pack. I didn't beg, because Grandma had hidden something inside the old pie safe. And by Sunday dinner, my mother would learn that the family she tried to erase me from had been watching the whole time. People in our town knew my grandmother as June Holloway, the woman who built Holloway's family table from a broken roadside breakfast counter outside Louisville, Kentucky. But to me, she was the woman who could fix almost anything with flour, black coffee, and silence. She opened her first cafe at 19, 3 cast iron pans, 1 rented griddle, a handwritten sign in the window that said, "Hot coffee, fresh biscuits, no one leaves hungry." By the time I was born, Holloway's family table had grown into 3 small diners and a baking kitchen that supplied pies to church events, school fundraisers, funeral luncheons, Thanksgiving tables, and every family in town that claimed they made dessert themselves. It was not glamorous. There were no marble floors, no crystal lights, no private investors, just wooden booths with scratches in the corners, a bell over the door framed Little League photos, handwritten specials, and waitresses who knew your order before your coat came off. The place smelled like coffee, bacon, cinnamon, and second chances. To me, that smell meant home. To my mother, it meant embarrassment. Marla Holloway hated anything that looked too small town. She said the diner was dated. She said the uniforms looked cheap. She said Grandma's recipes had sentimental value, but no growth strategy. Grandma always said my mother confused vision with vanity. But the truth was deeper than that. Mom had spent her whole life believing Grandma chose the diner over her. Every school play Grandma missed because a cook called out. Every birthday dinner interrupted by a broken freezer. Every holiday morning, Grandma spent baking pies for other families before sitting down with her own. So when Grandma chose me, it wasn't just about money. It was about losing a competition my mother had been fighting since she was 17. My father, Caleb, understood Grandma better. He worked the grill for years, fixed the old freezer when it died, balanced the books with a pencil behind his ear, and treated every employee like a person instead of a cost. He wasn't flashy. He didn't know how to make himself sound important. He simply showed up. And in my family, showing up was the rarest kind of love. When I was 15, he stopped showing up at our house. I still remember that evening. Mom was yelling in this kitchen about how Dad was holding her back, how she could have been running a regional brand if he weren't so small-minded. Dad stood by the door with 1 duffel bag. His eyes looked tired in a way I had never seen before. "I'm not leaving you, Em," he told me. "I'm leaving the war." But when the door shut behind him, it felt like the war had chosen me. After Dad left, Mom changed fast. Or maybe she just stopped hiding who she already was. She started spending more time with Wade Parker, a restaurant growth consultant who wore shiny shoes into kitchens and spoke to waitresses like they were furniture. The first time Wade came to the diner, he didn't say hello to Rosa, who had worked the breakfast counter for 29 years. He pointed at her name tag and asked, "Grandma, is she full-time?" Because that's the kind of cost that kills growth. Rosa heard him. Grandma heard him. I heard him. Grandma wiped her hands on her apron and said, "Around here, we call that kind of cost loyalty." Wade smiled, like she had told a sweet old joke. That was what made him dangerous. He never looked angry when he insulted people. He made cruelty sound like strategy. He used words like brand elevation, labor optimization, and market capture. Grandma said he smelled like unpaid invoices. Mom married him within a year. 2 months after the wedding, she told me I should move in with Grandma because teenage tension wasn't healthy for the new household. That was the polite version. The real version was that Wade did not want a stepdaughter watching him measure Grandma's diner like he already owned it. So I moved into Grandma's yellow house behind the original Holloways. At first I thought I had been thrown away. Then Grandma woke me at 5 the next morning, handed me an apron and said, "Thrown away people don't get trained before sunrise." She taught me everything. How to fold biscuit dough without killing the rise. How to listen when customers complained because most people weren't really angry about coffee. They were angry about their life. How to schedule shifts without punishing mother's students or people who rode the bus. How to read vendor invoices How to calm down a cook before a slammed Sunday brunch. How to tell the difference between a busy dining room and a happy one. She also taught me silence. Not weak silence, strong silence. The kind that lets selfish people talk long enough to show everybody who they are. For 7 years, Mom drifted in and out of my life like bad weather. She came for holidays if photos were being taken. She posted captions about 3 generations of hardworking Holloway women, even though she never stayed to wash a dish. She hugged me in public with both arms and corrected me in private with one eyebrow raised. You still smell like fryer oil. You could look more polished if you tried. Don't get too comfortable, Emma. Grandma makes everyone feel special. Wade was worse because he never wasted cruelty. He made it sound professional. You're sweet, he told me once while I was restocking napkins. But sweet doesn't scale. Back then I didn't know how to answer, so I said nothing. I went to community college for hospitality management, worked opening shifts, closed the baking kitchen twice a week, and studied after midnight with sugar under my fingernails. Grandma watched everything. She rarely praised me out loud, but sometimes she left a slice of pecan pie beside my textbooks with a sticky note that said, "Good work feeds people twice." I kept every note. On my 22nd birthday, I expected dinner, maybe a new knife set, maybe one of Grandma's practical gifts like wool socks or a tire pressure gauge. Instead, after the breakfast rush, she called me into the back office. The office was barely big enough for 2 chairs, a metal filing cabinet, and the smell of old paper. The walls were covered with photos. Grandma at 19 in front of the first cafe. Dad holding me as a baby by the pie case. Mom cutting a ribbon at a reopening she had not helped plan. And on the desk sat the red recipe box. It had belonged to Grandma's mother. The corners were chipped. The lid had a burn mark from a kitchen fire in 1987. I had only seen it open a few times. "Sit down, baby," Grandma said. I laughed nervously. "Am I in trouble?" "Probably," she said, "but not with me." Then she slid the box across the desk. Inside were recipe cards, old photos, a brass key, and a folded letter with my name written across the front. "This is not just recipes," Grandma said. "This is the heart of the business. The original cafe building, the baking kitchen, the Holloway name, and the repair account I built to keep the doors open. They are yours now." I stared at her. "Grandma, what?" "I'm not dying," she said quickly. "So don't start making that face." I wasn't. You were. My throat tightened. "Why me?" She leaned back and looked at me with those sharp gray eyes. "Because you stayed when staying was hard. Because you learned the work instead of posing beside it. Because you know people are not customers first. They are people first." I could not speak. She tapped the box with 2 fingers. "This is a gift, Emma. But it is also a test." "A test of what?" "Whether you can own something without letting people turn your love into guilt." I did not understand then. I would by dinner. Grandma made chicken and dumplings that night because it was my favorite. The kitchen windows fogged from steam. The table was set with mismatched plates. The old radio on the counter played country music low enough for us to talk over it. For 1 hour, I let myself imagine a peaceful future. Then headlights swept across the kitchen wall. Grandma looked toward the window but did not move. A car door slammed, then another. The front door opened without a knock. My mother stepped inside, wearing a cream-colored coat and a smile so polished it looked painful. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," she said. Wade came in behind her with a gift bag in one hand and a leather folder in the other. "Big day," he said, already scanning the room. Mom kissed the air beside Grandma's cheek. "Mother, you didn't answer my calls." Grandma ladled dumplings into a bowl. "That was on purpose." Mom laughed like it was charming. Then she saw the red recipe box on the table. Her face changed, only for half a second. But I saw it. Wade saw it too. Mom sat down without being invited. "We heard there was a transition happening," she said carefully. "I wish you had told me before making such an emotional decision." Grandma did not look up. "I don't make emotional decisions. I make informed ones." Wade smiled. "Of course. And that is why we came prepared." He placed the leather folder on the table. Mom folded her hands. "Emma, honey, this is wonderful. Really. Your grandmother wanting to include you is sweet. Include me, like I had won a participation ribbon. But a business like Holloway's needs grown-up leadership," she continued. "Wade has looked at the numbers. I can handle the public side. You can learn under us." I felt the warmth leave my face. "Learn under you." Wade opened the folder. "We're not taking anything away. We're protecting you from being overwhelmed. You would still have a meaningful role." "What role?" He paused. Mom answered. "Brand face. The room went so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. I looked at her. You want me to smile in photos while you and Wade run the diner? Mom's smile tightened. Don't make it ugly. It got ugly before I said a word. Wade sighed like I was a difficult employee. Emma, you're young. You're sentimental. That is not an insult. It just means you are not ready to make hard decisions. Grandma's voice came soft from the end of the table. Hard decisions like replacing my staff with part-time kids. Wade blinked. Grandma continued. Or changing my biscuit recipe to frozen dough. Because real butter makes you nervous. Mom's eyes flashed. Mother, this is exactly why we need fresh thinking. You mean cheaper thinking? I mean realistic thinking, Mom snapped. Then she caught herself and turned back to me. Emma, listen. This family has carried you long enough. Your grandmother gave you a beautiful opportunity, but opportunities require humility. Sign the management plan. Let Wade guide operations. Let me handle the image. I stared at the folder, at the neat printed tabs, at the logo mock-up on the first page. They had already renamed it. Holloway Table Company. No family. No grandma's handwriting. No little rooster from the old sign. Just cold black letters that looked like every overpriced brunch place where people paid $14 for toast. I closed the folder. Number. Mom's face went still. Excuse me. I said no. This is not a toy, Emma. I know. That is why I'm not handing it to Wade. His jaw tightened. Mom stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. You ungrateful little girl. There she was. Not worried. Not loving. Just furious that the thing she wanted had been placed in my hands. She pointed toward the stairs. You think because Grandma handed you some keys you're suddenly above the family fine. Then don't sleep under a roof my mother built. The sentence landed like a plate dropped on tile. For 1 second I was 15 again, standing in a hallway, watching another parent decide I was only family when I was convenient. I waited for Grandma to speak. She didn't. That hurt. Then I saw her eyes. Calm. Steady. Waiting. So I did not cry. I picked up the red recipe box and said, I'm not leaving tonight. Mom's nostrils flared. Wade touched her elbow. Let's go. She needs time to think. Mom leaned close enough for only me to hear. You have until Sunday. After that, we stop asking nicely. When the door slammed behind them, the kitchen felt smaller. My hands shook so hard the recipe cards rattled inside the box. Grandma reached over and covered my hand with hers. I'm sorry, she said. Why didn't you defend me? Because I needed to hear you defend yourself. I looked at her. She looked tired, older than she had looked that morning. People like your mother don't start by stealing, Grandma said. They start by making you feel rude for protecting yourself. I swallowed. What happened Sunday? Grandma's mouth curved, but it was not a smile. Sunday dinner. That's the plan. That's the stage, she said. The plan is in the pie safe. The pie safe was older than the cafe. It stood in Grandma's dining room, a tall cabinet with punched tin doors and a stubborn lock. When I was little, I thought it held secret desserts. Now Grandma opened it with a tiny key from her necklace. Inside were old menus, newspaper clippings, envelopes, and a small flash drive taped to a recipe card for lemon chess pie. No lawyers, no court papers, no dramatic lawsuit, just ordinary things people leave behind when they think no one important is watching. Printed emails, screenshots of texts, a contractor estimate Mom had approved without permission, a mock staff announcement Wade had written, a menu draft where my name was listed under community face/founder's granddaughter, not owner, not manager, not even partner, just founder's granddaughter. But the worst page was near the bottom, a screenshot from Wade's phone sent to my mother. Once June makes Emma feel chosen, we step in as the rescue plan. The girl is desperate to belong. That's the lever. Under it, my mother had replied, exactly. She folds when she feels unwanted. Always has. I read that line 3 times. Each time it cut deeper. Grandma did not rush me. Finally, I whispered, she knows. Grandma's voice was gentle. Yes. She knows what hurts me. Yes. And she uses it. Grandma's eyes shone, but no tears fell. That is why Sunday matters. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, angry at myself for crying. Grandma lifted my chin. Don't be ashamed of tears. Be ashamed only if you let them make your decisions. By Sunday morning, Mom had already started her performance. She posted a photo of herself and Wade standing in front of the original diner. The caption said, "Big changes coming for our family business. Honored to carry my mother's dream into the future. Not one mention of me. Not one mention of Grandma giving me anything." Aunt Beth commented, "So proud of you, Marla. My cousin Lauren added 3 heart emojis. A woman from Mom's church wrote, "No one deserves this more." I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Grandma took the phone from my hand and placed it face down. "People clap for the first story they hear," she said. "Let them." That afternoon, the diner was closed for family dinner. That was what the sign on the front door said. But Grandma had quietly invited more than family. Rosa came wearing her good red sweater. She had worked the breakfast counter for 29 years. Dennis arrived with his wife and a peach cobbler. He opened the kitchen at 4:30 every morning and still remembered which veterans wanted extra gravy. Benny brought flowers for Grandma. He had started washing dishes after rehab because Grandma believed people were more than their worst season. 2 regulars came too because Grandma said anyone who had eaten the same breakfast for 30 years had earned a chair. Then Dad walked in. I had not expected him. He wore his old brown jacket, the one with a burn mark on the sleeve from the grill. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he opened his arms. I stepped into them like I was 15 and 22 at the same time. "Hey, Em," he said quietly. "Hey, Dad." He held me a little longer than usual. "I'm proud of you," he whispered. I had not done anything yet. Somehow that made it hurt more. At 6 o'clock, Mom and Wade arrived. They were not expecting witnesses. I knew it the second Mom stepped inside. Her smile flickered when she saw Rosa, Dennis, Benny, Dad, Grandma, and half the old staff seated at the pushed-together tables. Wade recovered faster. "Well," he said, spreading his arms. "This is nice. A real family gathering." Rosa muttered, "Funny. I was told I'd be cleaned up." I nearly choked. Mom's eyes snapped toward her. Grandma rang the little service bell. Everyone quieted. "Thank you for coming," she said. She stood at the head of the table, small but unshakable, wearing her navy cardigan and pearl earrings. "This business has fed our family for more than 40 years. It has also fed people who became family without needing the last name." Mom's smile hardened. Wade placed his folder on the table. Grandma looked at him. "Wade, you brought paperwork again." He chuckled. "Just ideas." "Good," Grandma said. "We'll hear them." That surprised him. It surprised Mom, too. Wade stood and gave the performance of his life. He talked about growth, new signage, centralized hiring, simplified menus, stronger digital identity. He said efficiency 6 times. He said heritage twice, but only when looking at Grandma. He said my name once. Emma can remain involved as the emotional face of the brand. The room went cold. Dad lowered his eyes. Rosa crossed her arms. Grandma simply nodded. Then Mom stood. "I know change is hard," she said, using her church voice. "But my mother has carried too much for too long. I'm her daughter. Wade is my husband. It makes sense that we step in before Emma gets buried in responsibilities she does not understand." Then she looked at me with soft, fake pity. "Sweetheart, this is not rejection. This is protection." I stood before I even knew I was going to. My voice came out calm. "That's what you called it when you sent me away too." The room went silent. Mom's face flushed. "This is not the time. It never is when the truth is inconvenient." Wade's smile disappeared. "Emma, be careful." Mom placed one hand over her chest. "Whatever you think of me," she said, voice trembling just enough to sound wounded, "I would never use my own daughter's pain against her. I am still her mother." For 1 second, I almost believed the performance. Almost. Grandma turned her head slowly. "No, Marla," she said. "That is exactly why we are all here." Then she walked to the pie safe near the back wall. Every person in that diner watched her open it. She took out the red recipe box, then the envelopes, then the flash drive. Mom went pale. Grandma placed everything on the table. "I wasn't sure I wanted to do this in front of people," she said. But then Marla started telling people a story that did not belong to her. Mom's voice sharpened. "Mother." Grandma ignored her. She lifted the first page. "This is the estimate for removing the original counter, the photo wall, and the pie case." Rosa gasped. Benny whispered no. Wade stepped forward. "That was exploratory." Grandma nodded. "Then explore this. Here is the staff memo you wrote calling my employees outdated labor." Dennis pushed his chair back. His wife grabbed his arm. "Mom said those words are being taken out of context." Grandma looked at her. "All right, let's add context." She passed the pages down the table. People read in silence. I watched their faces change. Confusion first, then hurt, then anger. Not loud anger, worse, quiet disappointment. The kind that stays. Wade reached for his folder. Grandma rang the service bell again. He stopped. "There is more," she said. Benny walked to the wall-mounted TV we used for basketball games and plugged in the flash drive. A video appeared. Security footage from the cafe office. Wade and Mom stood beside Grandma's desk 2 weeks earlier. I had not known the camera recorded sound. Wade's voice came through the speakers. Once June makes Emma feel chosen, we come in as the rescue plan. The girl is desperate to belong. That is the lever. Then Mom's voice. She'll fight for a minute. Then I'll remind her she has nowhere else to go. The sound that went through the room was not a gasp. It was worse. It was the sound of people understanding all at once. My mother stared at the screen like it had betrayed her. Wade looked at Grandma. You recorded private family conversations. Grandma's voice stayed even. In my office. In my diner. While you were planning to gut both. Mom stood trembling with rage. How dare you humiliate me like this? Grandma's eyes softened, but her voice did not. Marla, you humiliated yourself. I only stopped cleaning it up. Mom turned on me then, because she always turned on me when she could not win against Grandma. You did this, she said. I shook my head. No. I believed you for years. That was my part. I'm done with it. Her mouth opened. No words came, so Wade tried. He faced the room like a man at a town meeting. Everyone needs to calm down. You're hearing emotional fragments. Businesses need hard decisions. Some employees may feel threatened, but Dennis stood. He was not a big man, but the room seemed to make space for him. I opened this kitchen when your shoes were still clean, he said. Don't call me threatened because I don't want frozen biscuits. A few people laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. Rosa stood next. I missed my daughter's school plays to cover shifts here. Miss June paid me anyway when my husband had surgery. You called me labor cleanup. Wade swallowed. Mom looked around, realizing the room was no longer hers to perform in. Then Grandma took the folded letter from the recipe box. This is what I wanted Emma to have, she said. She handed it to me. My name was written on the outside in Grandma's careful handwriting. Read it, she said. My hands shook as I unfolded the paper. I read aloud. Emma, if you are reading this in front of the people I hope are sitting here, then you have already done the hardest thing. You said no to someone who expected your pain to make you obedient. My voice cracked. I kept going. Holloway's family table was never built for the loudest person in the family. It was built for the hungriest person in the room. Hungry for food, for work, for mercy, for a place to sit, without proving they deserved the chair. You understand that? That is why the original cafe, the baking kitchen, and the Holloway name belong to you now. Not because you are perfect, not because you are the easiest, but because you stayed long enough to learn the difference between ownership and service. I stopped. The words blurred. Dad bowed his head. Grandma said softly, Finish it. I took a breath. Anyone who wants to help you will be welcome at the table. Anyone who wants to use you will find the door. Legacy is not what a family demands from you. Legacy is what you refuse to let them destroy. Love, Grandma June. The room was completely still. Then Rosa started crying. Dennis wiped his eyes with a napkin and pretended he wasn't. Dad looked at me with the kind of pride that made my chest ache. Mom's face twisted. Not with sorrow, with humiliation. This is insane, she whispered. Then louder. This whole thing is insane. You are all acting like she's some saint because she can bake pies and look pathetic. For years I had seen my father avoid fights. At family dinners, he lowered his voice. During arguments, he stepped outside. When Mom got cruel, he looked away like silence could keep the roof from falling in. But that night, he didn't leave the room. He crossed it. He stood beside me. Don't talk about my daughter like that. Mom laughed bitterly. Your daughter. You left. Dad nodded once. I did. And I regret every day I left her with someone who punished her for being easy to love. That broke something in the room. Maybe in me. Mom looked like he had slapped her. Wade grabbed her coat from the chair. We're leaving. But Mom wasn't finished. She pointed at me, eyes bright with fury. You think you won. You think a crying staff and an old recipe box make you ready. You'll fail. You'll run this place into the ground trying to make everyone feel special. I finally understood something. My mother did not hate that I was weak. She hated that I had been loved by someone she could not control. So I looked around the room. At Rosa. At Dennis. At Benny. At Dad. At the regulars who had eaten pancakes under this roof longer than I had been alive. Then I looked back at my mother. No one is being cleaned up, I said. No one is being replaced by a spreadsheet. No one who helped build this place will be treated like a line item. Wade's jaw tightened. I kept going. You once told me sweet doesn't scale. Maybe you were right. but neither does disrespect when people finally see it. The room went still again. This time it was not shock. It was agreement. I placed my hand on the red recipe box. As long as my name is on Holloway's family table, this diner will stay what Grandma built it to be. A place where people are fed, paid, fairly remembered by name, and never made to feel disposable. Rosa covered her mouth. Dennis looked down at the floor. Dad put one hand gently on my shoulder. Mom stared at me like she no longer recognized the daughter she used to steer with guilt. For once, she had no perfect line. Wade pulled her toward the door. At the entrance, she turned back. "You're choosing strangers over your own mother." Grandma answered before I could. "No, Marla. She is choosing people who acted like family over people who used the word as a weapon." Mom's face crumpled for half a second, not enough to become regret. Just enough to show the truth had landed. Then she walked out. The bell over the front door jingled behind her. For years that sound meant someone was coming in hungry. That night it sounded like something leaving for good. No one clapped. Real life is not like that. No music swelled. No one cheered while my mother disappeared into the parking lot. The room simply exhaled. Rosa came over first and hugged me so tightly my ribs hurt. Then Dennis. Then Benny. Then Dad. Then people began clearing plates, pouring coffee. Cutting cobbler, doing what people do when they cannot fix pain but still want to feed it. Grandma sat down slowly. I knelt beside her chair. "Are you okay?" She smiled sadly. "No, but I'm right." That was Grandma. She never confused comfort with truth. Later, after everyone left, Dad stayed to help stack chairs. For a while, we worked in silence. Then he said I should have fought harder for you. I leaned against the counter. "I used to wish you would come back and rescue me." His face tightened. "I know. But Grandma taught me something." "What's that?" "Being rescued feels good for a minute. Learning to stand lasts longer." He smiled, but his eyes were wet. "She taught you well." "No," I said. "She made me practice." The next few weeks were not magical. That matters. People love the big moment when everything changes. But the next morning still comes with invoices, clogged drains, staff schedules, and a freezer that makes a noise like an angry lawnmower. Mom posted one more thing online, a long message about betrayal manipulation and how some daughters are poisoned against their mothers. For half a day, people commented with sympathy. Then the diner regulars started replying. Not cruelly, just honestly. Rosa wrote I was in the room. Dennis wrote so was I. Benny wrote Miss June told the truth. Dad did not comment. He simply changed his profile picture to one of him and me standing in front of the original cafe when I was 6. That hurt me in the best way. Wade tried calling vendors. Most stopped answering, not because of lawyers, not because of scandal, because small towns may gossip, but they also remember who paid on time, who sent soup when someone's mother died, and who tipped extra when the diner was short-staffed. Mom did not lose an empire. She lost something worse for a person like her. She lost the audience. Grandma and I did not expand. We did not rebrand. We fixed the roof. We replaced the cracked tiles near the dish station. We raised wages a little and added one paid day off after Thanksgiving because Rosa had been asking for that for 6 years, and Grandma had always said when we can. Now we could. I added one thing to the menu, a breakfast plate called the Noisy Table. 2 eggs, skillet potatoes, bacon, and 1 biscuit with honey butter. Grandma said the name was ridiculous. It became our best seller. One morning, an old man named Mr. Palmer waved me over. He had eaten at the same corner booth every Tuesday since before I was born. He tapped the menu and said, "Your grandmother's still in charge." I looked toward the kitchen window. Grandma was correcting Dennis about gravy thickness. "Yes," I said, "but so am I." Mr. Palmer nodded. "Good. Place feels the same." I smiled. "That's the goal." He pointed his fork at me. "No. Places don't stay the same by accident. Somebody has to protect them." I thought about that all day. That night after closing, I opened the red recipe box again. The cards smelled faintly like vanilla and age. Some were written by Grandma, some by her mother, some by women I had never met but somehow knew through their measurements notes and little warnings in the margins. Too much nutmeg ruins it. Let the dough rest. Don't rush good things. Serve warm if someone is sad. At the very back was a blank card. Grandma had written one line at the top. Emma's first rule. I sat there for a long time with a pen in my hand. Then I wrote, "No one gets to call control love." I placed it back in the box. A year later, Holloway's family table was still standing. Not perfect, not famous, not viral the way Wade wanted, but full. Full of truck drivers at dawn, nurses after night shifts, mothers with toddlers throwing jelly packets, Teenagers splitting fries because they only had $7. Old men arguing about basketball. Women drinking coffee long after their plates were cleared because they needed somewhere safe to sit. Grandma slowed down a little that year. She still came in every morning, but she let me open the safe. She let me call vendors. She let me handle complaints. Sometimes she even let me change things without pretending to hate it first. Then one evening, Mom came by. I saw her through this front window before she opened the door. She looked smaller, not poor, not broken, just less polished. For a second, my stomach became that old fist. Grandma was not there. Dad was fixing a loose shelf in the back. I could have hidden. I didn't. Mom stepped inside. The bell rang. No one else was in the dining room except one college kid studying in the corner. Mom looked around like she expected the walls to accuse her. "Hi, Emma." "Hi, Mom." She swallowed. "I heard the place is doing well." "It is. That's good." The silence between us had years inside it. She touched the back of a chair. "I came to say, I may have handled things badly." I almost laughed, not because it was funny. Because handled things badly is what you say when you burn toast, not when you use your daughter's deepest wound as a business strategy. But Grandma's voice lived in my head. Do not let tears make your decisions. Do not let anger make them either. So I said, "You hurt me on purpose." Mom's face tightened. I was trying to protect what should have been mine too. "There it is," I said softly. She looked up. "What?" "The truth. You didn't come to apologize. You came to see if I had softened the door." Her eyes filled, but I could not tell if the tears were grief or frustration. "Emma, I'm your mother." I know. That was the hardest part. If she had been a stranger, I could have hated her cleanly. But she was my mother, and some part of me would always remember wanting her to choose me without needing an audience. I took a breath. "You can have coffee," I said. "You can sit here like anyone else, but you do not get to walk behind the counter. You do not get to talk to my staff about business. You do not get to call this yours." Her jaw trembled. "That's cold." "No," I said. "Cold was telling your daughter she had nowhere else to go. This is a boundary." She stared at me for a long time. Then she nodded once, not accepting, not really, but understanding that the old lever no longer worked. She left without coffee. When Dad came out from the back, he had heard enough to know. "You okay?" I watched Mom's car pull away. "I think so." "You wanted her to say more." "Yeah, she may never." "I know." And I did. That is the part no one tells you about dignity. It does not always come with closure. Sometimes dignity is locking the door after someone leaves and not chasing them down the street for the apology they still owe you. Grandma passed me a week later in the hallway and said, "You stood straight." That was all. From her, it meant everything. Now, when people ask how I inherited Holloway's family table, they expect a simple answer. They want me to say my grandmother gave it to me. That is true. But it is not complete. She gave me the diner. But first, she gave me mornings. She gave me work. She gave me the names of people who mattered. She gave me silence strong enough to survive insults. She gave me a place at the table before I believed I deserved one. And when my mother tried to turn that table into a throne, Grandma showed me the difference. Family is not the person who says you owe me while reaching for everything you built. Family is the person who saves you a biscuit before the rush. The person who tells the truth when lying would be easier. The person who says, you can stand here until one day you believe them. I used to think legacy was something passed down when someone got old. Now I know legacy is a choice made every day. It is in who you feed, who you protect, who you refuse to become. My mother wanted the Holloway name because she thought it made her important. Grandma gave it to me because she knew names only matter when you live up to them. And the red recipe box, it still sits in the office. Not locked away, not displayed like a trophy. Used, loved, flour dusted, alive. Because my inheritance was never just a diner. It was the right to stop begging for a chair at a table I had been helping build all along. And if you have ever had someone call you selfish for finally protecting your peace, remember this. No one gets to call control love. No one gets to call guilt family. And no one gets to take your chair at a table you helped build with your own hands. If your own mother tried to take what your grandmother left you, would you still let her sit at your table? Or would you lock the door for good? Tell me in the comments. Because somewhere someone listening needs to know they are not alone.